Good afternoon, everybody. Today what we're going to be doing is tying in a new water line into the existing water line underneath the home, and that way we have a new shutoff valve and a new hose spigot that will allow for everything to be brand new up until this point. And then further back beyond that, we're going to be replacing the piping, but for the purposes of this video I'm just going to show you connecting in a new shutoff valve with a hose spigot. This is something that anybody can do. All you need is a little knowledge and know-how. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to Teflon this. This is a 1 inch by 3/4 male adapter, and what we'll do is we'll wrap the Teflon around 4 to 5 times, and then we'll put on the threads going clockwise for tightening it up. And then what we want to do is you always want to have the Teflon started so that you're going away from you in a clockwise rotation. That way when you screw it on the valve, it will also not unpeel the Teflon. It'll go with it instead of against it. If it goes against it, you're peeling it off. That's a very common mistake someone will make, and they'll get it all put back together only to have a leak and get very frustrated going back to the local hardware store. Alright, so what I'm going to do is I'll go ahead and stop the video. I'm going to wrap the Teflon around 4 to 5 times, and I'll come back to you once I have the valve tightened up. Alright everybody, so as you can see, I've got my Teflon around the threads. Again, it's going to go in a clockwise rotation. We'll go ahead and put on the valve. I'm going to be very loose with the grip on it so that we can find the threads. If you're tough with it, you're very liable to strip the threads. So just be kind of feeling, just kind of barely grabbing hold of it and guiding it over the threads. This is a very common mistake that someone would make, is to cross thread this and then also again end up with another leak at the end of the project when they go and pressurize everything. So what you want to do is you want to tighten this up. We'll do this by all the way until it's hand tight, and then we'll give it another maybe half to full rotation with the pliers. You don't want to go extremely tight, especially with our threads being plastic, because you risk the threat of busting this pipe inside the valve, and that is a pain in the butt to get out there. So right now we're getting where we're hand really tight. So what I'm going to do is I'll bring this back around where the handle's up front, so we'll have about a half of a rotation tight. I'll go ahead and do that, and then I'll come back to you again. Okay everybody, so what I ended up doing is just the way that it was getting tight, I didn't feel comfortable making another quarter turn, so I ended up leaving the valve on the side, which is perfectly fine. It's still able to be shut off. There will be no issues there. I always choose a ball valve because you get more flow, less resistance, and there's not a rubber gap in there where the valve mechanism is right here. There's not a piece of rubber to eventually stop or not stop the water from coming through when the valve shut off. So I always spend the money, a couple extra bucks, get a ball valve, and you never have to worry about the handle breaking off or corroding there either. Sometimes this will corrode, but it's a really thick metal and it's got a piece of rubber on it, so you should be good to go there. So just on and off. If it's in the pipe, it's on. If it's against the pipe and intersecting it, it's off. It's pretty simplistic. So what I'll do now is we'll go ahead, we're going to put in on this job, we're going to put in a 90, and we're going to go a little bit, and we're going to put in a T, so that the standpipe out of the T comes along with the wall. That will allow me to put 2 screws in it and make it for a really rigid, good job. That way you don't risk busting the pipe if you hit it, or just every time you turn it on and off, it's very flimsy. So I'll rough that in, and I'll show you what it'll look like before I actually do it. Okay everybody, I know some of you guys out there don't like shark bites. I don't either. Unfortunately, this is all they had, and for the time conservation, that's what I'm going to go with. So this will actually be the first time I use more of a permanent fitting for a shark bite. My days in the plumbing field, I just use them as a temporary fix to maybe get the customer's water back on overnight, and then come back the next day and fix it. Rigiding pipe. So this will be the first time, so I'm interested to see how it does over a long period of time, and I'll maybe give you guys some feedback if you see this video later on in time. If you want to ask about it in the comments, then maybe I can come back and get back with you. So all I did was I rough fitted everything in there to give you guys an example of how that goes. This is the T I was referring to. That'll give me a standpipe and allow me to put 2 screws in here, making this really nice and rigid. I'll still have enough room to get some insulation around the pipe. This is CPVC water line. Very common here in Florida. I don't like it, but it's code, and you know, it does the job. But unfortunately, around 8 to 10 years, it's going to start getting brittle again. That's another topic of conversation, but we won't go there. So that's what it looks like. My standpipe was a little crooked coming out of the ground for whoever did that previously. I'm not real concerned about it. The plant is in front of this anyways, and we'll get it all tied down and rigid and good to go. But that'll be it, and that'll be the complete job. All I have to do now is prime and glue, and I'll come right back and show you what that means. Okay everybody, so what I'm using is a pack of Odie. It's a very common plumbing suppliers, Home Depot, Lowe's, hardware stores, very common brand, very good brand. I like using CPVC glue that also takes the primer, just because I like adding primer. It basically softens up the glue and hardens up so that it's a very tight, good seal once it glues and sets, and it also cleans the pipe at the same time. It's another step, but at the same time it's a better job, and I feel more confident in the glue on the fitting once I'm done with it walking away and not having it blow off. So what you would do is basically each one of these comes with a brush. You wipe down the size of the fitting inside here, about that much into the fitting. You'll see a little ring right here. That's your set ring. Just wipe that in from this end to the open end, and same thing down here. You'll wipe from that ring to the open end just with the brush. Once you got everything done primed like that, then you would hit it with the glue and push it back together real quick. So that's it in a nutshell. So what I'll do is I'll go ahead and I'll prime all my fittings and glue everything up, and then I'll come back and close out the video. I'm going to show you when you're on the actual pipe, you just want to basically clean off any like that yellow marking on it. Clean that off real good, and just go around the pipe, keeping it nice and clean. Don't let it just get globby everywhere. It makes for an ugly job towards the end. But just give it a good nice and clean, and few rotations. Just about the width of the fitting is all you need to do. You don't need to be back here, and again, that makes the job ugly. So all I do now is I brush it with this real quick, and I stick it together, and give it a good coating with the cement, and around there and around the fitting, push the two together. As you can see, I dabbed the glue on there, run it around the fitting and the pipe, stuck the two together, held it for a second, and twisted it a quarter turn, just to any groove that goes along with the glue. That wipes the groove out so it doesn't make a leak. So just give it a little turn after you push it together, not a big turn, just a little, 1/8 inch turn, and then you want to hold it together with your hands pushing against each other to hold that fitting in there for maybe 5-10 seconds. Give it a good set. And then what I always like to do, as you can see with this tag, is I always like to wipe the edge real good and make a nice clean job. You don't have to wipe it completely because you don't want to wipe out too much excess, but you just want to wipe it enough to make where it's pretty for the customer. All right, everybody, job is complete as far as what I set out to do. The only thing I need to do is I'm going to drive and drill 2 screws into these holes to secure it to the building and make it really rigid. But as you can see, all my joints are primed and glued, and now it's setting up. You want to give this about 15 minutes at a minimum to set up. You don't need to get crazy and have it be an hour and a day, but give it at least 15 minutes. If you feel more comfortable at 30, give it 30. But that 15 minutes is from your last joint you set. So don't set your last joint and you started the clock on your first joint. So that's just rule of thumb there. The other rule of thumb is these 2 guys here. If you're ever in contemplation as to whether you should buy more, once this stuff starts hardening up and gets a thicker texture to it, you don't want to use it. You'll have a leak, it'll blow out, it won't set right. They won't bond together like they should. So I think these ran about $6 or $7 for the set. It's totally worth buying a new set whenever you have a job to do. So don't let that sit in the garage for a year and a half. You have a sprinkler leak and then you try to use it or something like that. So always get you some new. If when in doubt, just buy some new ones. But as you can see, this is the job. We'll go ahead and finish what we're doing, but for the purposes of the videos, this job is complete.